Yes, and so the segue to our next keynote speaker was, flawless, because now we actually have an artist. Yeah, so the artist Jeroen van der Most is an artist who works with data, who works with algorithms and artificial intelligence. And he really, at the center of his work, is exploring how technology impacts the human story. So his artworks visualize the rise of artificial intelligence, AI, and inspire thought and really who we are and what is the possibly troubling or utopian futures that technological development might bring for all of us moving forward. So I'm very happy to hand over, and where are you, Jeroen?
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks to the organization. Great honor to be here, to be able to speak. I'll try to do a share screen now, and hopefully this is gonna work. So I'll share my PowerPoint presentation here, and then I'll do the slideshow. And we'll have that on screen. Well, thanks again. Indeed, I'm Jeroen van der Most, artist working with artificial intelligence, creating art with artificial intelligence, or shortly AI. And in this short talk, I'm going to show you a couple of my artworks that I generated or created with or together with artificial intelligence. And maybe just start right away. What we're looking at here at this image here is in reality a 2-meter wide artwork. Actually, it's a digitally created image. And it combines, it's printed on metal, and it combines elements of famous Dutch old master paintings with actually elements that are created by artificial intelligence. So what you see amongst others is, for example, the milkmaid from Dutch old master Vermeer. There's a piece of a famous Rembrandt in there. There's 2 dogs which are actually by 2 French old masters. But if you look in the left bottom and the right bottom part of the painting, of the artwork, then you see 2 creatures, and these creatures, they're created by artificial intelligence. And we'll try to have a closer look at them now. You see them here a bit up closer, more in detail. So how does this work? How is AI, artificial intelligence, capable of creating these 2 creatures? Well, this works as follows. What I did was show the artificial intelligence system. I showed it 10,000s of pictures of birds. And if the AI system then starts to analyze those images, then slowly but surely it starts to grab or sort of understand what visually a bird is. It starts to get what the form and the shape and the color of a bird is, but also the textures, these feather-like textures that a bird has. It also gets a feeling or an understanding of that a bird always has 2 little things at the bottom, the legs, and it has a little head. And if it starts to understand those core concepts of what a bird visually is, then it can create new ones. And these new ones, they're not averages. They're really truly, they are new image depictions of bird-like creatures. And what you see here, of course, the birds are not perfect yet, but artificial intelligence is really capable, increasingly capable of creating nearly perfect imagery. We'll take a look back at the full artwork now, because what I also like to explain is that this artwork is not just about a sort of technical exercise with creating new imagery using artificial intelligence. What this artwork is about, to me, is that it's about how creation is changing. We once thought that creation was something that was uniquely human, or only humans could be creative. And what you see happening now is that increasingly computers are also capable of being creative. And we're at a point in time at which creativity is actually becoming something like a human-computer interaction or cooperation. And there's benefits to that. There are good things about that. Working with AI, artificial intelligence, in the creative process has benefits, because you can let the artificial intelligence system do much of the hard work that comes with a creative process. And the human can focus more on the concept or the idea or the message or the emotion that you try to transmit with an artwork. So it's sort of a bit like working with artificial intelligence, like Rembrandt worked with a team of helpers to help him create his artworks. But there's downsides to artificial intelligence as well. because we're kind of at a crossroads now also. Artificial intelligence, of course, has a darker side to it. We could also imagine a future in which it's not the human that's actually creating the basic ideas behind something, but it's the artificial intelligence that's generating the ideas, and it would be the humans that do the hard work, the execution of those ideas. And that's a little bit of what you see happening, for example, in the financial tech sector right now. It's what you see happening there is that artificial intelligence systems, algorithms are starting to analyze the market data, and then do recommendations on certain, for example, purchasing or buying decisions, and humans actually executing those decisions. It's the other way around there. So where we'll end up in this darker future or this more brighter future of human machine cooperation, I don't know. Art is mainly to me about speculation about futures. It's about posing questions and riddles about the future, not particularly specifically about making exact predictions of how it will be. But the next artwork that I'd like to show you is again an idea about a longer term future, about where this evolution of the creativity might lead. It's an artwork in which butterflies and artificial intelligence create art together. And what I did, I will show you a little short movie of it in a minute. What I did to create this artwork is that I shot hours of video footage of butterflies flying around in butterfly gardens in the Netherlands. And then I learned an AI system to recognize those butterflies in the video footage and actually draw lines where the butterflies fly, and that way create art. I'll show you a 30-second clip now. In reality, it's a longer movie. Here we go. So that's a short clip, 30 seconds of how you give a little bit of a feel of how these butterflies and AI create art together. There's actually also, I created prints of end results of what the butterflies and AI created. You see one example here on the screen now. And what I'd like to tell or explain to you is also that the core motivation or realization that's behind this art project to me is that you get, it's actually the biggest realization you get, in my opinion, when you see, for example, artificial intelligence creating a beautiful image, or for example, being able to be the human at a game of Go or chess. You realize that the human is no longer at the top of a sort of evolutionary top, the crown on intelligence. We're not uniquely the only entities in this world that are intelligent. Increasingly, we are surrounded by semi or increasingly intelligent machines. But of course, we have always been surrounded by other intelligent entities as well. We've always been surrounded by intelligent animals and semi-intelligent plants, for example. AI to me is really about that realization as well, that the boundaries or these boundaries between man, machine and nature, they're fading, or they have always been imaginary. That's what AI is about to me. And if you think about this artwork in which butterflies and AI create art together, then there's still a role for the human there as well. It's the human who actually initiated this process, this artwork with imagination. And in some way, the artwork, hopefully, or maybe hopefully, will give a sort of inspiration back to viewers of the artwork, a sort of energy to the viewers of this artwork. So in that sense, it's sort of like human, machine and nature creating art together, but also giving an energy back to the whole system, the system of man, machine and nature. And my artworks are always a metaphor for how you could use artificial intelligence or technology in a broader sense. So if you think of AI, how it's used at the moment, then it's always really about the human. It's really about human-centric. It's a human-centric way of using technology. For example, if you go back to the bird images, which I created in 2017, it's about creating images while we already have a lot of images of birds, of course. AI, as we see it being used today, is mainly about economic benefits also. It's about selling shoes. It's about serving the right advertisements online to the right people. It's about the human. And in my view, AI could and should be used in a more non-human way, it should be used out of a more outer human perspective, benefiting the whole ecosystem. And maybe that sounds a little bit fake, but what I mean, for example, is that you could use, for example, AI to monitor the health or the well-being of an ecosystem, of an entire ecosystem, of a forest, for example, and help us create ideas for us to actually benefit with our actions, the health or the state of the entire ecosystem. And these are some of the questions, some of the ideas that I explore in my art. And if you want to see more about it, then take a look at my website. If you want to join me on that future, to explore that future with me, then also add me on Instagram or LinkedIn. And for now, thank you very much for your attention.
Jeroen, thank you so much. And Mette, you've been monitoring the chat. So if you could throw a few questions at Jeroen.
I have to unmute myself, yeah. But I think because Dan was very fast and actually asked 3 different questions. So I think if we give the word to Dan, if you unmute yourself, if you can rephrase that into like 1 question for Jeroen, because you had several on your mind. So, yeah.
Well, yes, I will just ask one. But what do you think that art in this way can still be political or moral or something?
Oh, absolutely, because art is still at the moment. It's yeah, the whole idea of really having artificial intelligence, which is creating art at its own, that's quite an illusion, and it will be for quite a long time. Art is still always, even if you use artificial intelligence to create it, it's very much a cooperation between human and AI. I see AI.
But okay, I get this. But where is then the political / moral part of the artwork?
Because the whole artwork is created based on the moral or the political ideas of the artist. So there's always this human, this human entity behind it.
Okay, then Lene has a question, and that I'll just read it up. What kind of story should we tell about ourselves as humans if AI ends up making most decisions?
If AI starts making most decisions, well, we shouldn't let AI make most decisions in the first place. So it's a very hypothetical question, but we should take care that we shouldn't let AI take all decisions. That's a really bad thing. And I think hopefully it will be quite unlikely that it actually will be there like that.
Okay, Lene, was that enough for you, or do you want to elaborate?
Well, I hope that Jeroen is right that we won't let AI do that. But if I can connect what you've been talking about in this AI and connect it to my little teddy bears and bring out the good bureaucrat with the bow tie, who does not make a lot of art, but who would love to have a machine come up with all the answers, so he shouldn't take responsibility himself, but get the answers from somewhere else. How do we create the Bildung that makes him comfortable about making his own decisions?
Well, I think around artificial intelligence, you have to, it really is about the importance of building, in the sense that I think if you want to make core of good decisions around artificial intelligence, design good policies around artificial intelligence, then you really have to have knowledge in all, in very different fields. The whole problem artificial intelligence also at the moment is that lots of the very important decisions are just made by programmers with only knowledge about programming, not about ethics or not about all sorts of other implications, environmental implications, etc. About which you would need to really make good decisions about how to implement and use AI.
Yeah. And actually, Jeroen, I was just thinking, just last night, I finished watching the last episode of this season of Westworld. I don't know if you have followed that at all online. It might be something right up your alley, because the whole point in that season is really about an AI that has been created by human beings, obviously, in order to save humanity from itself in a way, right? So the AI created an algorithm for the path of every human being. And in that system, some people are winners and others are losers, but it's very controlled. Sort of humanity doesn't break out in chaos, right? But of course, then the question of free will comes in, and eventually that system is being dismantled, because humanity, or one human, then decides it's more important for us to exercise free will and to become that last teddy bear that Lena was talking about, a moral being that makes his or her own choices in a world aided possibly by AI, but not overtaken by AI.
Yeah, exactly. But it's and I haven't seen it actually, but it's indeed one of the major problems, of course, with AI is that it's used, for example, in China, in increasingly extent to control the people and actually monitor the people using face recognition, etc. And well, absolutely, yeah. So that's a big risk. And oh yeah, free will. The whole free will discussion is, of course. Yeah, it's fascinating, but that's really what AI to me is also about. AI in art is also about that it will pose and is posing all these interesting philosophical questions, also around free will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With a very advanced artificial intelligence system.
Exactly.
Would that be something that we could consider to have something like free will or not? Or some sort of conscious state?
Method. You have a few
very
more
interesting
questions.
questions, but it's very debatable, but
Yes.
interesting.
Yes. Mette, any more questions that you would like to pick out?
There's so many questions, and they're so good, and in all directions. There's this one, which is like in another field. Is like from Severi? I don't know how to pronounce your name. There's a sort of wild Bildung that happens when people are in social media groups on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, for instance. All this seems to happen with AI and algorithm watching over, providing us with new material. Any thoughts about this?
About actually for AI serving us material on social media?
Yeah, that was the question, I think.
Okay, yeah, well, there are indeed AI technology is really behind how sites like Facebook and Twitter serve us content. And the whole problem, of course, with how this content is served in social media is that it kind of ignites really the baddest emotion, triggers the baddest stuff in humans actually. So what you see is that often, not all the time, often content that really triggers all sorts of nasty emotions. So it generates the most attention, the most likes, the most shares, etc. And that's a problem behind the use of artificial intelligence, although it really depends on what kind of goal you also give the systems. So what you see at social media at the moment, it's that it's very much to a large extent about just attaining the attention of people as long as possible. So that's also why all sort of all the apps, etc., on your phone kind of evolve into a certain state in which there's kind of seducing the users in all sorts of ways to always get their attention and actually stimulate a sort of addiction to it. But if you would really change the goal or the actual the goals of what these systems actually will do, then I think, in my opinion, then it's still possible, or then it's definitely possible to use artificial intelligence in a better way. So I don't see that artificial intelligence in itself is a bad thing on social media. It's just the way that it's used. That's the bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Jeroen, yeah, thank you for that perspective, because in a sense what you're saying is that the tool of AI is just a tool, and it's as intelligent as the person who's built it, right? So it's not in itself good or evil. It's not conscious yet, and we're quite far removed from that degree of consciousness. So the question is, again, what is the lens that we use in order to deploy AI onto people, and for what means? And Meta, I was wondering, should we call maybe on Nicola, because he made a nice connection to Bildung?
Exactly, that was exactly my thought, that the final question, and I think it really relates to Bildung, and it's a fine question to maybe go on with this, is like, is there a world in which AI develops Bildung before humans do?
Yeah, no, maybe. I think that's very, very far away. It's what you see. Artificial intelligence is very much overestimated. Also, artificial intelligence at the moment is really about medium level creativity, and it's a very different sort of intelligence than humans possess. So it's really about doing very specific tasks, like winning at a game or so of chess or something else. The actual idea of course, consciousness and etc. That's something that's very, very far away, if it will happen. And well, yeah, it's just so an artificial intelligence system actually developing some sort of better idea about Bildung than a human would. That's also something I would estimate to be in a very far future, unfortunately.
Jeroen, thank you so much. This was a very interesting topic, and I can see that people are getting warm now, right? So if you want to, you can still scroll through the chat, and if you feel like answering a few questions in the chat, that would be amazing that we didn't get to. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks. And yeah, for everybody else, as Jeroen said, just follow him on different social media, connect with him that way. And thank you for this fascinating presentation.
You're welcome. Thanks.